now that that's done and out of the way. Okay, so here are a few different things that I have been talking about the past few weeks. I just want to, I think I'm trying to more so figure out my flow of how I want to do things. With that being said, is I really want to be able to get in the flow of actually structuring my lives, especially on YouTube, a little bit better. I think that I don't have that great of structure. I start to talk and bounce all over the place, and it's probably not the best thing, personally, because I think it makes it a lot harder for people to track. But with that being said, I think that everyone is probably super tired of hearing all about all this stuff that's going on in Iran. I think that we are all sitting there seeing different news reports every single day about the stuff that's going on in the world. We're getting super tired of it. I think everyone's getting to the point where we're just completely exhausted. People don't want to hear about it, and understandably so. I think that it's a bit much most days. I think that just it would be nice to see something positive going on in the world, rather than all this just doom and gloom every single day. I mean, that personally, I think would be a really nice touch to have. Like, show me some news that's good. Show me some news instead of like all this like
Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar!
Be really cool. But anyways, I want to kind of, because I've talked about it in the last stream, I've talked about little things here and there, but I really want to dive back into the history of the region. I think that that's one of the things that people really don't understand as much when they, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the professional or a absolute historian, but there are some really different different tools that are out there that are really great tools for us to be able to utilize. And I want to kind of just pull it all together and just show you guys some of the stuff that I found throughout my bit of research. Again, to the point, I'm not a historian. I'm not the professional in the matter. I'm a bystander that has my opinions and has been definitely somebody that's formulated those opinions, and will be a little bit more vocal about my opinions. Because I think that's one thing a lot of people have really not wanted to talk about is their opinions on the matter. I think that it's become a little bit more socially accepted to finally start talking about these things. At first, when you're starting to talk about the matter, if you go against the flow, one thing I found is when I started talking about this stuff and I would start talking about these foreign countries and these people and how they're influencing our politics or the stuff that I'm seeing, is one of the things that I was getting feedback. It was that people are sitting there and they're like, oh, you're so anti-cinematic. And I was like, oh my gosh, guy. Like, that doesn't, because you're making an observation, it doesn't make you anti-cinematic. Because you're saying this, it doesn't make you, far left. It doesn't make you liberal. It doesn't make you this or that. I am so tired and exhausted of all these labels, right? I feel like all we've known is labels. You're left, you're right. I'm tired of that. I'm so tired of it. Can we all just sit there and be like, I'm done with this. I'm absolutely done. I don't care for the left or right argument. I don't care for this divide any longer. I really don't. So what? One side's a little bit, they're waving their flags around. They're having little scantily clad parades running through there in their little mankinis and Speedos. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't affect my life. Live your life. I don't care. Go live your life. One side's all like, hell yeah, America, bacon, guns, liberty. I love that. And I'm like, yeah, cool, dude. I like guns too. Like, it's a fun time, right? Like, go shoot. If you shoot a gun and you're sad, I don't know what's wrong with you. But besides the fact, I think I've been somebody that's a little bit more vocal. I've always been a little bit more vocal. I don't care what people think. Clearly, I have a lot of tattoos. I had face tattoos once upon a time. Now they look like ink smudges. I swear I wasn't in any prison gangs. I didn't have any teardrops tattooed on my face. But again, it's these are the things the stuff that's going on in the world is something that really interests me because I see this how humans interact with each other, and I'm really exhausted with it. I'm exhausted with again, to the point, I'm really exhausted with this whole divide of this left versus right and yada, yada, yada. Well, guess what? Both sides, left, right, doesn't matter. They're both funded by the same foreign countries. So let's just get that one out of the way. Let's talk about that one, right? Both sides, if you don't know this, you can look into it. It's a different rabbit hole for a different platform. So if I want to grow this one, I'm not going to talk about that right now. But there is no left or right. It's this ideology that's been created, in my personal opinion, that really just pulls up superficial topics to get one side to argue with the other side. Left, right, Democrat, Republican, they all have the same foreign freaking, can't even talk today. Be really cool if I had viewers so they could tell me what I'm trying to think right now. But anyway, if you look at everything that's going on, the on both sides, they still have one common goal, and it's not American first. I mean, when it comes to American topics, it's always creating a divide. You have to be this and vote for this, and you have to do this and you vote for that, and that means you guys can't mesh. You guys can't have conversations. You guys are going to be divided continually, and you will never agree on things because this side, if you are this side, you cannot be any of this. You can't agree with this. You can't talk about this. But I digress. Coming back to what I really want to talk about was a little bit more about the stuff that's going on in Iran. I think that this stuff really goes back so far, right? You have to, in my opinion, and I'm not going to dive into it today, but you have to be able to dive into the different countries, the things that were happening during that time. You were just coming out of World War II. So you had World War II that was going on from 1939 to 1945. You had that ending. And then coming out of that, you started to have these different countries really starting to establish. And there was this time of world peace, in my opinion. And everyone's having this grand old time. But when things are going the right way, someone steps outside the line, now the people at the top are going to really be like, you can't do that. We're not going to allow that. One of those things that was happening was you had Iran, which was very much so in the sense, in my opinion, it was a country, in a sense, how do I word this? So in like Germany, right? During World War II time, you had a National Socialist company. That means the people are all together working in unison for the greater good of the country. Do I think that National Socialism is a bad thing? I don't know. I'd have to look a little bit more into it personally. I think that the name of that has had so much negative connotation to it. Where if you're like, hey man, like what a people group working together for the greater good of the country, that doesn't sound like a really bad thing. My personal opinion. That was what was happening in Germany. Then you get out of World War II. Everyone says, hey, these guys are the bad guys. You can't like them. You can't like what they're doing. Whatever. Don't even look into the history of what they're doing because that's probably just not something you ever want to learn about, right? Okay. So then you come into Iran. Iran is this country that was really trying to find its identity in the world, in my opinion. They had a strong national pride. They were, everything goes back to the basis of oil, right? This country, which could be an extremely prominent country, has all this oil. And you have Iran in this group of people that were nationalist people. They wanted to be able to, they had this pride in Iran, and they had all this immense wealth that could really come out of that region. Look at what happened from 1953 to 1979. We saw this immense wealth really grow under, obviously, these Western policies where we were really just exploiting all the resources that were in that region. But there was this immense growth of wealth. People were becoming more studied. But how did we get there, right? So you come out of World War II, 1953 comes around. This country, Iran, has this national pride. They've got this jackpot of gold they're sitting on that's in the ground. Well, in 1953, you have, let me pull this up real quick so you guys can read with me. 1953, the US, along with Britain, stepped in and formed a coup. Now, what I was saying too is US and British intelligence agencies help elements in the Iranian military overthrow Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. This follows Mossadegh's nationalization of the Britain-owned Anglo-Persian Oil Company. For those of you that don't know, that is BP, right? Which led to London to impose an oil embargo on Iran. The coup brings back to power the Western-friendly monarchy headed by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who is deeply unpopular among much of the population. The Shah relied on the U.S. support to remain in power until overthrow in 1979. We'll get to that point too. But to the point, I think that this is the thing that people keep coming back to. They're like, well, this one regime was extremely oppressive to its people. So then people are going to sit there and they're going to be like, well, this coup that we did was for the people of Iran. But it's not always. I think that those are the things, the motions that have been pulled along the way, right? I think that there's this sense of humanity where if you see somebody or a people group being oppressed, well, that's not right, right? It's not right. But the tough thing is that we'll go under this guise of world policing, and we're going to be there for the betterment of this foreign country. And with that being said, is, maybe you want to see the greater good and everything, and you're like, well, guess what? That could be the greater good. We could go in there, we could help get rid of this bad regime who's severely oppressing the people, or so they say. And that is a noble feat for us to be able to pull off, allegedly. But then years later, a lot of that history starts to come out and you start to understand the things that were going on. Well, guess what? Now you have these rich, powerful elites that just played into the heartstrings of millions to get us to go into there and justify the means by which we did it. So there was all these protests that were going on during this time. You guys can look into it a lot more, but you have the coup in 1953 started by the US and British intelligence agencies. That's the CIA and the MI6. They went in there, they had these protests going on, they overthrew the government with the Iranian military as well, and they put the Shah into power. Now, everyone will sit there and argue that 1953 to 1979 were such great years for the Iranian people, but they were also being severely oppressed by the Shah himself. So you have all these things that are going on, and we get one bad guy out to get the bad guy that we know in. What's really being done for the people? If we're going to play world police, you need to have somebody that's going to be in there and have the people's best interests, right? Is that fair to say? Yeah. Anyway, next one coming up, you have in 1954, Iran signs the oil agreement. So under US and UK pressure, the Shah signs the consortium agreement of 1954, which gives US, British, and French oil companies 40% ownership of the nationalized oil industry for 25 years. So again, to the point, in 1953, leading up to it, you had a government with Mohammad Mossadegh that was set in place where he was a national guy. He believed in the nationalism. He wanted the oil and the wealth to go to the people, which is if you are a specific people group, I don't personally think this is a bad thing. That's like me sitting there and saying like, hey, guess what? If we start to drill oil in the US and there's all this wealth that's being accrued from our resources in the land, the people should be able to benefit from that. Rather, we're in $38 trillion of debt in the US. So whatever. If we didn't have that though, and you're trying to build a wealth for your people, generational wealth, and you're exploiting the resources you have in your lands, power to the people. But that wasn't what was going to happen, right? So we had the coup happen. The coup happens because of the oil. BP, all that fun stuff. Look into it further. This is going to be the kind of, we're going to go at it at a glance, but kind of give you the timeline. So then you have the US and UK with the Consortium Agreement of 1954. That happens. Now we have rights to their oil. 1957 comes around. You have the United States and Iran sign the Cooperation of Concerning Civil Uses of Atoms Agreement as part of President Dwight D. Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace initiative, under which developing countries receive nuclear education and technology from the United States, lays the foundation for the country's nuclear program, and the United States later provides Iran with a reactor and weapons-grade enriched uranium fuel. Their collaboration continues until the start of Iran's 1979 revolution. Okay, so there's, especially when you start to see all these different arguments that are made throughout the time, right? We have all these different arguments that are being made where we're like, we know they shouldn't have nuclear power. Well, who was the country that gave them the nuclear power in the first place? The United States in 1957. In 1957, we gave Iran the capability to have nuclear power, or nuclear programs, rather. So you're telling me that the US in 1957 set Iran up to have nuclear programs? Yup. Crazy. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that would all come back to bite us, right? Because they have weapons of mass destruction. They're going to blow us up because they have nuclear weapons. Well, we gave it to them. We taught them. World police. Let's go in there and just help all these people have these things that we're going to turn and be like, oh, look, they're such crazy people. Shut up. Shut up. And then we're going to fast forward to September 14th, 1960. Great year. Great year. It was the first time I got laid. 1960 comes about, and you have OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. OPEC, right? Yep, cool. That was Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi, and Venezuela that all came together to form OPEC. During that time, that was set up to rival mostly the Western companies that were dominating global oil supplies and to reestablish control over their domestic oil reserves by the 1970s. OPEC profits skyrocket and the group gains considerable leverage over Western economies. Iran's increased market clout makes it an even more crucial U.S. ally. So you have these are the oil superpowers, right? We formed this coup in 1953. 1953, the coup happens. We go in there, BP, yada yada. We set up these different oil packs. Well, these countries are thinking ahead. We had only set up this treaty with these countries for 25 years, right? So when that 25 years is over, well, what's going to happen? These countries want to be set up for success. They're learning all these different things and they're trying to set themselves up for success because all these Western political systems have oil dialed in. The UK and the US have oil dialed in. Why would other countries not want to have their resources go into that same market? Well, now that's threatening us, right? Probably. I don't know. Richard Nixon, 1972. I did not know this one, so I'm learning with you guys. 1972, Richard Nixon travels to Iran to ask the Shah for help protecting U.S. security interests in the Middle East, including by opposing a Soviet-allied Iraq. In return, Nixon promises that Iran can buy any non-nuclear weapon systems it wants. Oil prices skyrocket amid the 1973 Arab-Israeli war and the subsequent Arab oil embargo against the United States, allowing the Shah to purchase a larger supply of high-tech weaponry than anticipated, which unsettles U.S. officials. So in 1972, you have all this stuff going on that Israel's in the Arab-Israeli war, this whole conflict's breaking out, and so this whole war is breaking out all these prices are going up. You have Iran, who's probably on edge because of the Arab-Israeli war. The U.S. sells off these weapons to Iran. So you're telling me that, let's go back. You're telling me real quick, 1957, we gave them nuclear programs. Then 1972, we sold them high-tech weaponry. Check. Sick. Cool. 1979 comes around, right? 1979, you have the Iranian Revolution. During the Iranian Revolution, the Shah flees amid widespread civil unrest, eventually travels to the United States for cancer treatment because the Shah ended up getting cancer during this time. So he was out in the U.S. having cancer treatment. The Grand Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a Shiite cleric who opposed the Shah's westernization of Iran, returns to the country after 14 years in exile. Khomeini, and I am not as well learned on this too, but Khomeini during that time, during the 1953 coup, Khomeini had been exiled for, I believe, 14 years. Or this was not during the coup, rather, but he was exiled for 14 years. That being said, after when Khomeini comes back, he took power as the supreme leader in December, turning Iran from a pro-West monarchy to an anti-West Islamic theocracy. Khomeini says that Iran will try to export its revolution to its neighbors. In 1985, militant group Hezbollah emerges in Lebanon and pledges allegiance to Khomeini. So one of the arguments that's been made, and I've seen multiple different times too, is you have heard all these different things about this anti-Islamic rhetoric. I think that it is a cancer in society. And you see that spread strongly by one side of people. I have quite a few friends that are Muslim. I do not agree with them on their religious beliefs. That being said, though, is I know what type of character my friends are that are Muslim, and spreading anti-Islamic rhetoric for whatever gain that may be is a cancer to society and should not happen. So one of the arguments that you see throughout these different time periods is that all these Islamic states are terrorists and they all want to kill you. I do not agree with them religiously, but that does not mean that that one group of people wants death to all Americans and wants death to America. The argument that we've seen is death to America is more so this argument of death to the powerful elites, death to these Western ideologies, death to these things that we don't align with religiously or personally. Now, again, we are a diverse world. We are a world of many different views. We are a world of many different views, different looks. We all look differently, right? We all have different things that we align with. Just because I believe in something does not mean you have to believe in something. That is part of humanity. That is part of the fact that my brain is going to process differently than yours will. That is what allows us to have different views, that have different, different ways of approaching things. So again, this argument and this, you see all this anti-Islamic rhetoric that's being spread throughout these years about everyone's chanting death to America, we hate you, all this stuff. I've also seen on one of the other ends where it's a lot of this death to America, death to the powerful elites, death to these Western ideologies, because it goes against their religions. From a lot of, not religions, but you have these different ideologies that go against these religious beliefs. So, that being said, I don't think that all Muslim people are trying to kill you. I really do not. Like I said, I have quite a few Muslim friends and they haven't tried to kill me that I know of. Maybe they've tried to poison me and I didn't eat the food or drink the drink, but I don't know. I'll have to ask them. That being said, though, 1979 comes around, the IRGC basically steps in. They take back the country. Shah flees to America, skin cancer treatment. Khomeini takes over. You see birth of Hezbollah in Lebanon, pledging their allegiance to Iran. Then you have 1979 through 1981. There's also a lot of stuff that's been coming out as of lately on these different things, but you have the Iran hostage crisis. Group of radical Iranian college students take 52 American hostages at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, demanding that the United States extradite the Shah. So that wasn't good enough for the people, right? The Shah had fled the country. Again, the Shah had also oppressed the people. So for everyone that's sitting there having this false ideology of these, because these people, I know there's these videos coming out lately from 1953 to 1979, which shows this immense wealth that was coming out of Iran, right? These people are just living lavish. These people are getting educated. There was pros and cons with the Shah as well, and he was heavily oppressing the people too. I would really encourage you guys to look further into that. But then you have like these building tensions throughout the years. The Iran hostage crisis. There was also one of our greatest allies had information that this was going to happen. This is a true story that I have looked into as of recently, right? One of our greatest allies, or so I've heard a lot of lately, had information on this about to take effect, and rather than exposing their assets, they allowed this to happen. So you have 1979 through 1981. You have the Iran hostage crisis. You have the Iran-Iraq war. You have the Beirut barracks bombing. This is also another thing that our greatest ally had information on. Or so I've read. 1985, Persian Gulf War. U.S. intensifies sanctions. So 1992 to 1996. Sorry. Actually, I'll go back to 1991. 1991, the United States leads a coalition of 35 countries to expel Iraqi forces occupying Kuwait. Ousting the Iraqis in a matter of months, the war leads to intrusive UN inspections to prevent Iraq from restarting its weapons of mass destruction programs, which the U.S. had set in place. Keep in mind, guys, the U.S. gave Iran nuclear programs. We had given them, the U.S. had also given Iran a lot of technologically advanced weapons for that time period. Comprehensive sanctions and widespread corruption under the Oil for Food program created in the wake of the war devastate the Iraqi public for nearly a decade, but failed to dislodge Saddam. Iran declares its neutrality in the conflict, but U.S. officials suspect it seeks to replace Iraq as the dominant power in the region. So the U.S. 1992-96 intensified its sanctions. United States ramps up sanctions against Iran under the George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton administrations. In 92, Congress passes the Iran-Iraq Arms Non-Proliferation Act, which sanctions materials that could be used to develop advanced weaponry. White House expands sanctions with a complete oil and trade embargo in 95. 96, Iran and Libya Sanctions Act imposes an embargo against non-American companies investing more than $20 million per year in Iran's oil and gas. So, December 5th, 2001. I'm sure you guys all know what happened a few months beforehand, but I'm sure that's a date we'll never forget, guys. Nobody's going to forget that date. Nobody will forget it. It was really September 11th, just so if you guys didn't remember. But that was September 11th. So you had the bond agreement in December 5th, 2001. It says after 9/11 terrorist attacks, President George W. Bush administration establishes a back channel with Iran to help coordinate the defeat of the Taliban, a shared enemy that had provided safe haven to the members of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. So you have this buildup. You have this whole buildup. We are now about to go into conflict in the Middle East. I really want you guys to understand that the different threat assessments that I was reading on too, and I'll show you some of them a little bit after as well. But you have in 2002 the State of the Union address. This is when George W. Bush had gone ahead and said that Iraq and North Korea, Iran, Iraq, and North Korea were an axis of evil. These people are literally just an axis of evil. And said that Iran was aggressively, he said Iran aggressively pursues WMDs and exports terror while an unelected few repress the Iranian people's hope for freedom. In response, the Iranian government stopped secret meetings with U.S. diplomats that are focused on capturing al-Qaeda operatives and combating the Taliban. Just want to reread that spot. The Iranian government stopped secret meetings with U.S. diplomats that are focused on capturing al-Qaeda operatives. Who was George W. Bush getting all of his information from? Well, there was this one guy that's first name rhymes with BB gun and his last name rhymes with Annette and probably a Yahoo chocolate milk. That was telling the U.S. government for the past 30 plus years that there was weapons of mass destruction inside of Iran and that they were trying to kill us. So you have this whole buildup through the timeline. He also was saying, hey, there's WMDs over in Iraq, right? Well, why do we go into Iraq? Because of the same thing that this guy was telling us. So 2003 happens, U.S. force invade Iraq, aiming to end the threat posed by what Washington says are Saddam Hussein's revived WMD programs. 20 years later, we found out that there was no weapons of mass destruction that were actually ever in Iraq, right? There was none. I think that's common knowledge now. But there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. So for 20 years, thousands of Americans were sent into the Middle East to go and die over this false pretense that these people had weapons of mass destruction and were looking to completely obliterate the United States of America. And that these people were the ones who did 9/11. Sounds believable. But we'll keep going on. You have all these tensions building. 2013. You have Barack Obama. And he started an initial nuclear agreement. But what was happening then was President Barack Obama calls newly elected Iranian President Hassan Rouhani in September to discuss Iran's nuclear program. Most direct contact since 1979. That was when the Shah was overthrown and the IRGC had taken over, right? So, basically, Obama was trying to cut off their plan for building any type of nuclear weapons, trying to have an agreement with them. Hey, you guys can, in my opinion, don't think I'm false in saying this, but I believe during that time he was basically saying, hey, you guys can have your nuclear enrichment, just do not create any type of weapons of mass destruction. Common knowledge. Then you have the JCPOA. And the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action is created, right? In return, or wait, no. When were they created? That's a false statement. Let me look this up. Was it then? It was 2015. Okay, not lying. So the JCPOA was created. Then in 2018, So I'm going to read this too, because I think that this is super crucial for all the stuff that's going on, right? So Iran, P5+1, and the European Union reached an agreement on Iran's nuclear program that is named the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA. In return for sanctions relief, Iran agrees to undertake a series of steps, including dismantling and redesigning its nuclear reactor in Arak, allowing more intrusive verification mechanisms and limiting uranium enrichment for at least 15 years. The deal is meant to increase Iran's breakout time for developing enough fissile material for a nuclear weapon from a few weeks to at least 1 year. Many Republican and some Democratic lawmakers oppose the deal, arguing that lifting sanctions will bolster the Iranian government and allow it to destabilize the region. The JCPOA was established and set up so that we would have had more oversight and vision into what was going on inside of the country. If they're over there, because you can utilize nuclear power or enriching uranium for various different reasons from what I've read. Whether that is trying to have some nuclear power reactor creating some more energy for the region. That's one thing I've heard. Now, with that being said, the JCPOA would have allowed us to have oversight of any type of nuclear programs that were going on in Iran, for simple terms. So if the biggest threat that we felt throughout the years is that this technology, this nuclear program that we allowed them and we gave them, why would we then all of a sudden pull out when we have oversight of these programs that we gave them? And we've said that, hey, the biggest threat from Iran is weapons of mass destruction, and they're going to have nuclear power and they're going to blow us up. And we create the JCPOA so that we would have oversight of any type of nuclear enrichment programs going on inside of the country. Why would we all of a sudden pull out? But that's what Trump did. Pulled us out of the JCPOA, right? Donald Trump announces that the United States will withdraw from the JCPOA and mount a sanctions campaign to place maximum pressure on Iran. Many arms control experts and European allies condemn the move, while many Republican lawmakers, Israel and Saudi Arabia applaud it. Oh, I wonder why those two are always applauding it. Anyway, Iran responds by boosting uranium enrichment and defiance of the agreement's terms. Withdrawal marks the beginning of rhetorical and military escalation with Iran under the Trump administration. In my personal opinion, if the biggest threat to us has always been, or so we've been told, if the biggest threat to us has always been their nuclear weapons program, then why are we pulling out of this? Why would you, if the JCPOA is established and it gives you direct oversight to any type of nuclear enrichment that's going on in the region, why would you pull out of that program? Unless you wanted tensions to escalate. I think that this is something that they knew that was going to happen. What's the direct fallout from that when you're trying to, all of a sudden, we gave them, just to reiterate, we gave them the means. The United States of America gave them the means to create nuclear programs. Atoms for Peace, Dwight D. Eisenhower, we gave them those means to establish nuclear programs. And all of a sudden, when the U.S. isn't involved and you have the 1979 IRGC come in there and you're all of a sudden this knowledge with all these nuclear programs is over there. And then we're trying to say that these people are trying to all of a sudden make nuclear programs that are going to blow us up off the face of the earth, 1979. And Barack Obama comes along and is like, okay, let's create this thing called the JCPOA. And everyone's on board with it because they still have these nuclear programs we gave them 60 years previously, or however long it was. Then why are we pulling out of it? Because if that's our biggest threat, we should want to have some type of oversight on everything going on. That's what I thought. I also believe that part of Donald Trump pulling us out of there, this isn't me being a conspiracist, but you don't pull out of there unless you want tensions to rise because you have some bigger plan to go back in there. You really don't. Because if you are controlling a specific region and you have the JCPOA that was constructed to have oversight of these programs. So why are you pulling us out? Why are you pulling us out of the JCPOA? You don't want oversight there, and that they're our biggest threat. They're a terrorist organization that wants to kill everyone. Why would you not want oversight? So, no, I don't agree with Donald Trump on that one. That was a really dumb fucking move. Sorry, can't swear on YouTube, I don't think. I don't really know how this thing works. But anyways, what happens immediately after, right? So we stop giving direct oversight because Donald Trump thinks that, and here's the thing. Here's where I stand on this, right? Do I think anybody should have nuclear programs? No. Do I think the US, Russia, any of these countries that have nuclear powers, like that they should have them? No. But do I think that there is a plus side to nuclear programs where you could create this type of power and have these sufficient grids with running off of nuclear power reactors? Yeah, I think that that's something that's beneficial to, from what I've learned on it. I'm not studying it. I'm not a nuclear physicist. But if you can create a power reactor from nuclear power, then I think that that's something that countries should be able to have that capability to. If you're using it for weapons, I think that we should have the JCPOA and that these countries should be able to monitor that. Fair. I don't like the fact that countries can utilize nuclear power for other means. But then you have Trump pulling out of there, this country that was working with us, he pulls us out of there and then labels the IRGC as a terrorist organization. Because again, coming back to it, we don't have the oversight. We haven't had the oversight since 1979. So we pull out this act, which gave us oversight. Now we have made them into terrorists. And actually, I'm going to read you this too. It said Trump designates the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, a branch of the Iranian army, a foreign terrorist organization, an FTO. It's the first time the United States designates part of another country's government as a foreign terrorist organization. Week earlier, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tweets that he personally requested the move. Wow. So I just want you guys to know this. We basically had Bibi Netanyahu running the U.S. government for the past 7 terms. And I thought we had a 2-term limit, so I'm kind of confused now. But again, we went into Iraq because Bibi Netanyahu told us there was weapons of mass destruction. 20 years later, we found out there was never any types of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We had thousands of Americans go in there, guys come back fucked up, all mangled, guys that never got to come back to their families. Sad reality of it. We were lied to about that war. It's really not, doesn't resonate with me. And here we are. And he tells us that this country is a threat and they're a terrorist organization. He requests that we label them as one. We do it again. Then I don't know if there was, I really want to look and see if there was something that had provoked them during this time too. But one thing that you see happen, especially with Iran, Iran is a very big country. I'm going to pull up a map too. I just want to, so you guys can get some type of understanding. Here is Iran, right? So you have this area is Iran right here, right? Iran is a very big country. There's 90 million people that live inside of Iran. It is a big country. That being said, this whole area right over here puts out about 23, I think numbers are, I've seen numbers anywhere from 22 to 25% of the entire world's daily oil, right? So about 22 to 25% of that oil flows out of here, right here. This little spot is the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz is in between the Persian Gulf over here on the left and the Gulf of Oman here on the right. So what happens is usually if they're having any type of sanctions, anything that's going on and it's screwing with the country, which I'm sure was happening at the time and I can't recall right now. But if there's anything that's going on at that time period, what you will likely see is there's going to be attacks. They're going to start putting a stranglehold on that Strait of Hormuz, because if you have 22 to 25% of the world's daily oil coming through this specific spot, along with a lot of other trade coming out of this region, and you put a chokehold on there, you're going to be heard real quick. So you had that whole attacks in the Strait of Hormuz. There was allegedly drone attack on oil facilities in Saudi Arabia and Aramco. You had protests at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, which were labeled as Iraqi demonstrators and Iran-backed militias attempted to seize the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad in retaliation for an airstrike that killed militia members. So, again, you start to see it's tough. This is a tough argument. I think that there's a lot of the things that I've seen is that, how do I word this? We're striking on these guys that are labeled as terrorists, right? We're taking them out, killing them. Now, there's a lot of kind of weird history on how a lot of these different terrorist militias were formed. And we're taking these guys out. If they're committing terrorism and they are bad guys, I think that bad guys, if you are a bad guy, you shouldn't be here on Earth. That is my stance. But 2018 happens, we leave the JCPOA, then we label them a terrorist organization. There's this stuff going on in the Strait of Hormuz. Then we start bombing these bad guys and taking them out. Now that people are protesting. Then we kill Soleimani in 2020. And Soleimani, bad guy, took him out. Okay. Now, during this time, you see, in my opinion, that Iran was getting oppressed and pushed back into a corner. I'll side with them. They start to amp up their military programs and maneuvers and missiles and things like that. You're being attacked, you're being sanctioned, you're having things happen. I understand it. Do I think that if they have terrorist organizations there that they should thrive and prosper? Not one bit. But you see them getting backed into a corner. Iran launches its first military satellite, prompting U.S. concerns over Iran's long-range missile capabilities. Days later, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the United States is still party to the JCPOA and will seek to snap back multilateral sanctions against Iran through Security Council resolution. Opponents of the move, including JCPOA signatory Russia, argue that the United States abandoned the terms of the deal when Trump administration reimposed sanctions on Iran. Iranian boats threaten U.S. Navy vessels in the Persian Gulf, but the United States does not respond militarily. Again, Trump left the JCPOA in 2018. Now in 2020, Trump's trying to use those same sanctions that we once had, which would have allowed us to have any type of oversight in the country, trying to pull that up again. And we had already sanctioned them. We had already done a bunch of stuff, given them strikes. We're attacking them, poking them with a stick. It's like a caged pit bull, right? We put them in a cage and we started to poke them. And then you have countries like Russia that are like, hey, no, you guys left this. You guys left the deal. They're trying to play diplomats right here. And they're like, no, you guys left this deal. You abandoned it. Now the country's on their own in their own successes. And what they want to do, you can't intervene on. You guys have pushed them into a corner, leave them alone. Russia's standing up for them. Sorry, I need to take a one-way trip to Zimbabwe. Pop a little Zinachino, dude. Am I right? What's good? Shout out Zen, dude. Not even a paid partner yet, but what's good with it? Then you have Venezuela oil shipments. Amid a shortage in Venezuela, Iranian tankers arrived to deliver oil despite the U.S. sanctions on both countries. In June, the White House sanctions 5 Iranian ship captains involved in the delivery to discourage trade between Iran and Venezuela. This goes all the way back to OPEC. These countries had basically had an alignment that was all their oil superpowers being able to team up. This is something that had happened when the U.S. was still on good terms with them. They established this means to work together. They are doing that here. And the White House sanctioned 5 of the Iranian ship captains. 2020, Trump's administration seeks to extend a decade-long UN arms embargo on Iran that is set to expire in October under the JCPOA. The administration contends that Iran is in violation of the deal and cannot be allowed to replenish its weapons stockpile. At the UN Security Council, a U.S.-backed resolution to extend the embargo fails, highlighting a lack of international support for Washington's Iran policy and the United States' diminishing influence. The United States also fails in attempt to reimpose international sanctions on Iran using the JCPOA snapback mechanism, leading it to unilaterally sanction entities previously targeted by the United Nations and say it will continue to abide by the now expired UN embargo. You have Trump bumping up his sanctions. They're still getting sanctioned. So then you have Iran, and they start to boost their uranium enrichment, right? You see, I don't even know how to say it. Assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, a top nuclear scientist. What a coincidence. What a coincidence, guys. You have Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, a nuclear scientist who was assassinated. Crazy timing. I wonder who did that. It couldn't have been us. That wouldn't have been a good look. We would have had to take him out with the Predator. Because nobody does it like we do. Iran's parliament approves a bill to boost uranium enrichment to 20%, far beyond the concentrations permitted by the JCPOA. But guys, the JCPOA was ended in 2018 when Donald Trump signed us out of it. Yeah, whatever. Then all of a sudden in 2021, we were trying to hold talks in Vienna, trying to bring back the JCPOA. Because did I not say that was not a great deal? It wasn't. And then amongst it too, so we left the JCPOA, which gave us direct oversight. Then we started to attack them and then put sanctions on them. And then all of a sudden in 2021, we're trying to come back to the table and be like, hey, I'm so sorry about what happened. Can we go back to what we had? Because it wasn't a bad deal. And this is what's crazy. I'm going to read this. So the JCPOA's signatories hold talks in Vienna aimed at bringing the United States and Iran back in compliance with the agreement. U.S. and Iranian officials attend the so-called proximity meetings to exchange ideas on sequencing a return to the deal. Each side insists that the other should be the first to resume its obligations, and they try to downplay expectations. For media progress, the talks persist even after an explosion at Iran's Natanz nuclear facility, which was blamed on Israel. Now, Israel, why would you bomb that nuclear factory while we're trying to have talks of going back to the JCPOA? It's almost like you guys didn't want it to work out. Nice. Anyway, so basically we're sitting at the table, we're sitting there and we're like, hey, let's go back to it. And Iran was like, start treating us like how you used to. And US was like, well, stop making nuclear power like you guys are. And they're like, start doing this. And then out of nowhere, Israel's like, oh yeah, we're gonna blow this up, dude. We're gonna get rid of this. Yeah, dude. Oh shoot, you guys we just blew up your facility. Sorry, no more nuclear power. Which then leads Iran to sit there and they're like, oh, hey, so now instead of 20% nuclear enrichment, we're gonna make 60%. Come on. What did I just do? Oh gosh, my fingers, dude. Fat fingers. What a lovely time. What a time to be alive. Then you had Sleepy Joe.
this guy's a crook. This guy's a crook. He's a villain. Look at him. Look at him. This guy's a felon. Listen, if you guys you ever smell somebody's hair? It's beautiful. It's one of the best things I think I've ever done. And then sometimes Jill gets me ice cream, and I love it. If you could, then anybody could. If you just wish to achieve. His name's Joe Biden.
And Biden's sitting over there and he's like,
seriously, guys. No. Look it. You guys aren't wanna create any more stuff. Look it. Stop. No more nuclear powers.
Yeah. So that's going on. All that stuff's going on. We got freaking stuff going on over here. Well, guess what? While we're at the talks of reigniting the JCPOA, and then Israel bombs their nuclear facility while we're trying to get back to diplomatic means with them. Well, now that sets off Iran. Again, Iran is like a caged pit bull where we were like, hey, you're going to sit in this cage. We're not going to give you any type of food. And we're going to poke you with a freaking stick, dude. And we're going to just piss you off. So now they attack Iran-backed Palestinian militant group Hamas launches a surprise attack on Israel. Well, didn't say karma's a bitch, but whatever. Then they start to fight. These guys, they're not getting along. These guys don't get along, dude. They just don't like each other. Probably because Israel keeps screwing with them. But that's just my opinion. Then, U.S. and Iran have nuclear talks. First time in 7 years. Crazy. So we start to talk to them, and we're like, hey, the Houthis, they got to go. The guys that keep attacking the Strait of Hormuz, they got to go. We got to stop this. Then you have Steve Witkoff. What a great guy. You know, he's a real estate developer and apparently world diplomat. He's in there. He's talking to Abbas Araghchi. And they're trying to talk about the nuclear program. And the details of this weren't fully released. But at this point, Iran has been poked enough times where they're like, hey, we're gonna keep our nuclear enrichment program, like we're not getting rid of it. I want to take a moment because I think this is a part that really, in this whole timeline, this is the part that really gets me. If you guys all remember during this time, so this is 2025, right? We've heard this throughout the years. This is the same argument that's been said. As we sit there and we're like, hey, these guys are all sitting there yelling freaking
Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar!
We're like, these guys are over here all sitting there yelling Allahu Akbar, death to America. They have weapons of mass destruction and intercontinental ballistic missiles that are aimed directly at us. And they want to kill us. I want to take the pause right here, though, because we attacked them in Operation Midnight Hammer, right? So we bombed them. We bombed 3 of their different nuclear facilities, calling it was a great success. This is a part that people don't understand, right? As an American citizen, I'd like to try to give our intelligence agencies the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, these guys are probably pretty good at what they do, right? They're in the intelligence agencies, they're American government agencies. We should probably trust what they're saying. Did you guys know in the 2025 Worldwide Threat Assessment by the Defense Intelligence Agency, this was put together by Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz from the U.S. Air Force. In here, let's go to let's go down to, let me see, where is, in China. We're going to let's go to Iran. Let's go to Iran. This is one of my favorite things to pull up, right? Iran. Where are you? WMD capabilities. So, WMD, weapon of mass destruction, right? This was a threat assessment in May of 2025. The Defense Intelligence Agency, one of the government agencies, put out a threat assessment. That means they have gathered intelligence, put it all together, and they're like, hey, here's who we need to keep an eye on. Here's who we need to watch. Here's who we probably should, this is an imminent threat. They talk about all these different things. And I quote right here, Iran almost certainly is not producing nuclear weapons. But guys, I thought that they had nuclear weapons and they're trying to kill us. Well, the Defense Intelligence Agency, who is charged with giving us threat assessments and doing whatever defense intelligence agencies do, like look into possible threats, well, they said Iran was not producing nuclear weapons. It's crazy. But again, to the point, we know that they had nuclear programs, because who gave them nuclear programs in 1957? Oh my God. The United States gave them nuclear programs in 1957, so we're the ones who helped them come up with these programs. Oh my God. Who would have thought?
Oh, wow. This guy's a crook. He's a felon.
Absolutely crazy. Goes on to say Iran has undertaken activities in recent years that better position it to produce them, if it chooses to do so. Since 2019, Iran conducted activities that exceed previous Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, the same thing that Donald Trump exited in 2018. The same thing that allowed us to have oversight of any type of nuclear production that they had, any type of military production that they had. So while this was being released and it's talking about the different nuclear capabilities, things like that, we're being told that there's weapons of mass destruction, right? So let's go back to it. That's when you have a month after the fact, because this was released in May. In June, we bombed them, right? So we bombed them. We poked the animal one more time. And so we decide to poke them, and we bomb them and their nuclear facilities. Fordow and Natanz, and Donald Trump, and I quote, says, "It was a great success. We bombed the shit out of them. Nobody could do it like us. We did one of the best bombings. Oh, quite frankly, and now I talked to my people, and they said, Donald, it's like you flew that bomber all the way over there. It's a long flight. And nobody could do it like I did it. But we did it. And we bombed them." So we bombed them after our Defense Intelligence Agency a month prior says there's no weapons of mass destruction and they do not have a nuclear weapons program. So these are their nuclear plants where they're trying to have nuclear enrichment, which, I mean, hey, maybe could have led into something more, but it wasn't released in the threat assessment. They also could be exploring nuclear programs for nuclear power reactors. It is something a lot of countries allegedly are doing, or so I've heard. But we bombed them. We bombed them because we were told there was weapons of mass destruction, right? Fast forward to here, January 2026. Mass protests spur further U.S.-Iran tensions. Now, here's where I think that Americans were getting really tired, right? Americans were getting so tired and so fed up of hearing over and over again all these weapons of mass destruction, over hearing all these intercontinental ballistic missiles, and these people want to kill you. So now you have to go to a different angle, right? Because the Americans are tired of that. We heard 20 years of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and Afghanistan, only to come out and find out that there was never any weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We were at war for 20 years, lost Americans over bad intelligence that we were fed by our greatest ally. And if anything, we never set up that regime for success. Look at what's going on right now. You think that they're pro-American? Do you think that we did anything for the better? We didn't. And I've seen a lot of guys, friends, family members that were over there too, that are super fucked up from all that. So I think that with that narrative, a lot of people were getting super tired of hearing all about these weapons of mass destruction because there was never any. So we just bombed their nuclear plants. So now you need a different angle. Now you need to have a different emotional thing that's going to pull the heartstrings of all the American people. And what do Americans not like? They don't like people that are being oppressed. So you start to have all these protests that are going on in Iran. And allegedly anywhere from 4,000 to 35,000 people were killed. Did anyone also find out the fact that there was a lot of Starlink satellites that were being found there? There was US and Israeli weapons that were being found there. So it makes me start to think that maybe CIA, Mossad, MI6 were pulling a lot of what they did in 1953 with the protests that were going on. When we had a coup going on in 1953, does anyone ever think about the fact that maybe we were the ones that were stirring up all this dissent that was going on in the country? Why are we finding Starlink satellites in there? Why are we finding US and Israeli weapons amidst all this? Yeah, I guess one would say that we create a lot of weapons, but why are they there all of a sudden? We've put sanctions on these countries. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of US weapons that were left behind. We saw that by the Biden administration. But why all of a sudden are these protests going on there? And then we're trying to sit there and play this world police angle now, right? Rest is history. We end up going in there. We ended up bombing them. One of the first bombs that comes out was a U.S. Tomahawk missile, which struck a school and killed 160. I believe the official report was finally 168 were dead in that school bombing, 110 of them being young girls. So we strike them, we bomb them. Well, now we poke them again, right? We bomb them, and now they start to strike back. And now one of the things I want to talk about a little bit more, though, is, I mean, this is the history of the region. Like, you have to understand everything that's happened along the way. And there's a lot that I haven't touched, a lot that I haven't gone in depth on. Again, I'm not the professional. I just will read these things and I'll gather them here. But we continue to attack them. Whether it's an accident or not, we bombed a school full of children. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, that's just really heavy. For me personally, I think that that's something that's extremely heavy to think about. Sorry, I'm looking at the ground. Got really distracted. But again, to the point is, you know, we attack them. And then you see them start to bomb and destroy U.S. bases. You see them start to launch missiles at Israel, a country who was the aggressor to them multiple times. So I just want people to understand that and think about it logically. Personally, do you think that if you have somebody and you punch these people, you have somebody standing in front of you, you go up to them and you hit them, how many times are they going to allow you to hit them again before they're like, hey, don't touch me. I don't like that. Don't touch me. Don't do this. I'm going to attack you now. Right? Okay. That's just my thought process. You attack somebody, they might just strike back. And I think the thing that also kind of frustrates me too is this is all the same thing about us going in, following our greatest allies' intelligence, despite what our intelligence agencies are telling us. So why do we have the Defense Intelligence Agency if we're not going to listen to anything that they're saying? Stop wasting U.S. taxpayer dollars if everything that their threat assessment is wrong. If our greatest allies' intelligence is that much better, then just listen to them and stop wasting our time and our taxpayer dollars on things and agencies that aren't in the U.S. best interest. But I truly don't think that they have America's worst interest. I think that they have America's best interest, and they put that threat assessment out for good reason. I don't believe that there was weapons of mass destruction. I don't believe that they had any type of nuclear capabilities to harm the U.S. Why? Because we've heard it for the last 30 plus years. We have heard that they're going to attack us for the last 30 plus years, and they have not attacked us for the last 30 plus years. So then we attack them. They start attacking back. They absolutely devastate all of our U.S. bases in these Middle Eastern countries. Then these Middle Eastern countries are getting bombed because of our bases being there. I also think that we're being lied to on how many deaths there really are. But now we're starting to see all these deaths and fatalities coming out of the region, and this one's an accident and that one's an accident. How many accidents and how many U.S. lives need to die at the behest of this country and foreign countries before we get all of our troops out of there? And now we'd have to leave there with our tail in between our legs because we just bombed someone who we couldn't defend against. Just goes to show. So now you leave the region. We don't have a foothold out there. We try to play world police. We left the JCPOA. We left the oversight. We said there was weapons of mass destruction. Then we had threat assessments get released that there was never any. So I think that this is poor democracy. I think that these egotistical moves from a diplomatic standpoint were stupid. They're foolish and arrogant, and we attack them on foreign governments' intelligence that we were fed. And U.S. service members have lost their lives due to this. It's disgusting. That being said, what's one of the things that I'm starting to hear a lot more of now, and that I really want to talk even further on? Well, now we're starting to see all this stuff coming up right now. We know that there's no WMDs. Now we're starting to see this whole war unfolding, and there's nobody approves of this. I think it's funny because you start to see. I don't trust, and here's the thing too, is I don't trust any mainstream media, right? Why? Because it's controlled opposition. Genuinely, for those of you that don't know, that may be watching, I would genuinely encourage every single one of you to go out there and say, hey, go take a look at who owns this media channel and tell me it's not biased. Who owns this one? Tell me it's not biased. Who owns this one? Tell me it's not biased. Because every single mainstream media account out there seemingly has foreign interests at heart. I don't buy any of it. So you start to see these falsified different polls coming out of, like these ones that are like really just underinflated. They're like, not a lot of people like this war. Well, then you're also seeing approval ratings from other different platforms, and there's only roughly 27% of people that truly want to be in this region. So you have about 27% of people that want to be at war. So for the rest of the country that doesn't want to be at war, you have this low approval. And then what's next, right? What's next? Well, when all these people seemingly do not want to be involved in a war, they don't see the purpose of us being there. They don't want to be at war. Well, now you have to grab the heartstrings of many. And here's what I'm saying. It is one of the biggest buildups that I've seen since 2001 in anti-Islamic rhetoric. It's quite frankly disgusting. It's disturbing that so many people are pushing out so much hatred out there. And take that Zin out. Sorry. The amount of anti-Islamic rhetoric that's being pushed out there is just disgusting to me. It's pure hatred. I've again to the point. I don't agree with the ideologies of my Muslim friends, But I do not believe that Muslims want all Americans dead. I do not believe that Muslims spread hate. I do not believe that Muslims want everybody to be attacked or had jihad committed against them. This is a very fair statement to say. But you have this entire push on both sides of the table, right? Because each, and here's what I'm saying, this whole left and right divide is so fake. This whole left and right divide, they get you to sit there and argue about superficial topics and ideologies to get us to yell at each other from across the table and tell you neither one of you can agree with each other. Well, guess what? Both of them have the same exact foreign freaking affair program. Both of them want war. Both of them want to go and attack Iran. Both of them are siding with the greatest ally. And so you have this anti-Islamic rhetoric coming from both sides of the table. And so it's the biggest increase I've seen since 2001. And I remember that time frame. I'm old enough to remember it. And it's disgusting because not every Muslim, I don't have to agree with the Muslim faith, but not every single Muslim wants to go out and attack you. And then all of a sudden it's this anti-cinematic topic on, oy vey, was so afflicted. Everybody hates us. It's the Muslims. They're trying to kill you. Get off your tuchus. Moshe Mordecai, look it. Get off your tuchus. These people are trying to hurt you. Oy vey. We're not buying it anymore. The same country, the same freaking lobbies fund both sides of the table. The same freaking lobbies are pro this war. So the same lobbies that fund Democrat or Republican, both ends of the table, that want you to argue about this stupid stuff on, hey, they're gay, they want trans rights, they want this, they want guns, whatever. All these arguments that are fueled by the same freaking people that wanted this war. So everyone's pushing out this anti-Islamic rhetoric because they're trying to get you to hate Iran. Now, do I agree with these governments? Do I agree with Iran? Do I agree with oppression? If this stuff's really happening, no. The humanity in me doesn't agree with oppressing other people groups. Not one bit. People shouldn't be oppressing other people. They shouldn't be killing people because you don't agree. Is it really that tough to say? But do I think that we need to keep going into these places and playing world freaking cop? No, we don't. We don't need to do it. Because what I see happening is that there's a lot of things that really are seemingly a reminder of other events that we had done in that country before. And then we say that these guys are the bad guys when we continually bomb them and do things to them and we sanction them and we try to kick them while they're down on the ground. And then all of a sudden they're the bad guys. I'm not trying to be a sympathizer and I want people to understand that. I abhor terrorism. I think that it's incredibly disgusting. Going out and taking innocent people's lives is disgusting. Let's just put that out there. But now we're trying to paint this narrative, right? And that's what's happening, and you guys need to be able to see it. It's pattern recognition. It's the same thing that happened in 2001 when we were lied to about weapons mass destruction. The same group that told you to hate these people is the same group who pushed for all those wartime refugees to come to the U.S. and stir up more dissent. Look into it. It's a real thing. So you have all this rhetoric that's going on, and now we have all these different Muslim terrorists coming out of the woodwork, right? Oy vey, Moshe, where did these guys come from? Why are they trying to all kill us? Oy vey, why? Stop. Jake Lang, shut up. Nobody likes you, Jake Lang. You spread hatred. And this so-called attack in NYC looks incredibly staged. Hey guys, see where that kid threw that duct tape thing?
throw some screws by it. Say it's a nail bomb. Say it's a screw bomb. Let everyone know they're screwed if that thing blows.
And then you have all these agencies that are somehow involved every single time. How does the FBI get there so quick? The FBI found us Tyler Robinson so quick, right? Because Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk, right? No. I'm gonna learn you guys something. This isn't some schizo conspiracist thing. Charlie Kirk was not killed by Tyler Robinson. Nancy Guthrie was not kidnapped by some randoms. That was a message. Every single time the FBI gets involved, I think it's just them getting Kash Patel, Aziz Ansari, whatever his name is. Sorry, Aziz. Kash Patel continually gets involved. I'm really uncomfortable right now, guys. Kash Patel seemingly gets involved every single time that they need to tie up loose ends. So we start seeing all these different attacks come up. Personally, I think that what you're going to see, especially given the amount of anti-Islamic rhetoric, is you're going to see a lot of different attacks happening across the U.S. Why? Because now because there's such low approval ratings, you have to paint a target on somebody in a people group that you want to be the bad guy. Oh my gosh. Crazy concept. Yeah, right? Who would have thought? But now you start to see these, hey, California could be attacked at any given time, right? That's one of the latest things we're going to see. I just want to set this preface, right? I think that, hey, there might be sleeper cells. And I talked about this in the last time, right? But I kind of want to simplify this because I talked in a broader scope of all these different false flag attacks. I also wanted to talk about like the weapons that we have, the capability that Iran has right now. If we're going off of the mainstream narrative right now, right? Here's what I'm seeing. You have a lot of anti-Islamic rhetoric that's being pushed. You also seemingly right on cue have all these different Muslim terrorists coming out of the woodworks and creating all these different attacks. And now mainstream media is pushing this narrative even further. Like, hey, look, we were right. We told you guys that these people were going to attack you. And look, they're attacking you just like clockwork. It's like they're right on cue. Right. Then you see these bigger targets getting painted. I've seen some crazy conspiracies I'll talk to you about after the fact too. But what I'm seeing right now is that this narrative's being pushed. Then you see this whole talk about California getting hit by drones. I just want to paint a picture. The Shahed 136 drone has a max distance of 1,600 miles. Iran is probably 7,000 miles away from California, which means that, hey, guess what? If you just did the math, that's not able to strike California. So what they're trying to feed you is that there's going to be some type of vessel, a Iranian naval vessel that's going to launch it off the coastline, and it's going to strike at different California cities, and it's going to hurt a lot of different people. And what's going to happen is all of a sudden, all the heartstrings of America are going to be pulled, and they're like, yep, let's get them. It's the same type of thing that happened during 9/11. Believe what you want about that. But what I'm seeing is that there's this narrative being pushed. There's seemingly these bigger threats that are coming up with seemingly a country that does not have the capability to even attack us. Now, what you're going to start to see with the narrative too is that they're sitting there and they're talking about, hey, well, guess what? The Mexican cartel or these cartel members actually might be helping out with the Iranians. And they're going to have a boat that's going to launch these drones. Well, who did we just kill a month ago? El Mencho, right? So now we have a bunch of pissed off Mexican cartel. So do I think that could be a perfect platform? Yeah, possibly. I think that the Mexican cartel would be a great platform to push this rhetoric that Iran's going to attack us with their drones on U.S. coast. I really do believe that's a great platform for them. With that being said, too, people are like, well, what about these? You know, we live in the U.S. We have all these different technologies, all these different naval vessels that could shoot it down. That's why we have the Navy. That's why we have all these different fighter squadrons and jets and whatever, right? Yeah, that's cool. Did you guys know that like probably about 60% of the navies in the Middle East right now dealing with that whole problem that we created over there? Oh, crazy. So now we're vulnerable on the California coastline. The Shahed 136, I do want to also recognize the Shahed 136, in case Iran or Mexico don't have the means of attacking us, the Shahed 136 was also duplicated by a company called Spectre Works based out of Phoenix, Arizona. Look it up. They created what they call the Lucas FLM 136. The Lucas FLM 136 is an exact carbon copy of the Shahed 136. The same drone that they're threatening could attack us. The same drone that only has a max distance of 1,600 miles, which could not be launched from a country that's 7,000 miles away. I do also want to take the time to say that we have the exact drone clone to that weapon that the U.S. has developed and designed. Now, is it complete conjecture to say, hey, that they could also attack, that the U.S. government would attack its people? Yeah, I think that it's a fair argument. I think that that's I really wouldn't want to think of that angle. Do I think that the U.S. government is entirely compromised by foreign governments? 100%. I think that these are the same things that JFK had warned us about in the 1960s before seemingly he was taken out by opposition. Fair to say. So with that being said, with that whole notion is I truly believe that there's going to be some type of, this isn't like a schizophrenic rant. This isn't some conspiratorial thing. This is pattern recognition of things that have happened to us in the U.S. in the past. This is pattern recognition. This is the same thing, the same textbook, the same playbook being ran back again. The whole push, the whole idea of weapons of mass destruction in a foreign country was completely overplayed. People were tired of it. People didn't want to hear about it. Then we had the whole other people group getting impressed. People are like, whatever. We still don't want to be there. Ratings are lower than they've ever been on any type of U.S. conflict. And people don't want to be in the Middle East anymore. We don't want to attack countries. We don't want to be seen as the bad guy, right? Because on this noble quest for world policing, it has to have the right means. And so what comes into picture is false flag. You have an increase in all these Muslim terrorists that just popping up out of the woodwork, just like clockwork, and starts attacking people. And now people are like, yep, we're going to rally up the troops. We're going to all start approving of this war because all these terrorists need to go. Right on cue. Now with this whole drone thing in California, there's some crazy conspiracies. Larry Silverstein was one that popped up. The US Bank Tower in, I believe it's LA, was bought in 2020 by Larry Silverstein. For those of you that don't know, Larry Silverstein was the same guy who bought the World Trade Centers right ahead of time, right before 9/11, despite what anybody had ever said about those buildings, despite them being a huge, those buildings would have been a huge loss. They had a bunch of asbestos damage. There was a lot of work that needed to be done, which would have meant that he would have bought those buildings and almost immediately been put upside down. You have Larry Silverstein who goes in there and must have a horseshoe shoved up his butt because he seemingly took out a terrorism insurance plan right on time. What happens shortly after? Both towers are struck by planes, and both of them are downed. It wasn't a controlled explosive. A controlled demolition. No. Because if there's one thing I've learned about this war, right, is that you could bomb a skyscraper. You could bomb a skyscraper, right?
And guess what's not going to happen, guys? This tower, it's not capiche. It's not going to fall. This tower is going to stand. You could bomb a tower. It's not going to fall.
So hypothetically, right? Hypothetically, you could just fly a plane into a building, which I believe that actually, I think there was a tower that in New York that was hit by a plane years back. And the tower was standing. Oh, but the jet fuel, oy vey. Yeah, the jet fuel burns really hot, right? But did you guys know that jet fuel does not burn hot enough to melt steel beams? Oh my gosh. Oy vey, Moisha. Oh my gosh. You guys can go down that rabbit hole yourselves. That's not what I'm here for. But that same guy that bought the World Trade Centers had bought the US Bank Tower, the tallest tower out on the West Coast, in 2020. I wonder if he took out terrorism insurance plan by way they yeah, this tower, I want it to be protected against the Iranian regime. Oh my god. Oy vey, let's put that in our insurance claim, Moisha. Yeah, okay, that'd be wild. Absolutely bananas. Could you imagine that? So that's a conspiracy right now. Is that going to be a targeted attack? Is LA going to be a targeted attack? Is some banking system that somehow lost $2 trillion a couple days before, is that going to get targeted? And then all that paperwork and technology is going to be gone. We're going to lose another $2 trillion. I mean, which one is it? I mean, there's a lot of California is a seemingly extremely dense and heavily populated state, right? Yeah, it's very densely populated. I think California actually has the highest populace of people living in any state. So with them being a target, well, you got to switch up the coast from time to time, right, guys? Yeah. You got to do that. So it makes sense if they were going to create a false flag diversion to pull at the heartstrings of all Americans. Is, if you attack us on domestic soil, a lot of Americans are going to be pissed off, rightfully so. But do I think the means of us getting to that point are valid? Nope. Guys, hear me out. We're gonna paint a picture. Nobody could paint a picture as good as us. And quite frankly, it's probably gonna be one of the best pictures we're ever gonna paint. It's gonna be of a false flag. And they said, Donald, nobody paints a false flag as good as you. It's one of the best. And I said, you're not wrong. So, guys, I mean, to the point, guys, this could be entirely a false flag operation. I would really encourage, I really want to encourage you all to look into 9/11. There's some guys that are very knowledgeable that have talked about it. I believe, I think Tucker Carlson dove into it. I don't remember the gist of his conversations about it, but I was very happy that Tucker Carlson had dove into it. He's a little bit more mainstream of a guy that we've seen throughout the years. One of my favorites, Ian Carroll. Ian Carroll had spoken about this. He is somebody who's incredibly intellectual. Really, he's just, if you want to dive down any type of rabbit hole per se or conspiracy, he is a go-to. He is a must. He's talked heavily on 9/11. I think Joe Rogan's talked, quite a few people. You can look at all this stuff. And if you dive down like the rabbit hole on that, you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, holy shit. Holy shit. Like, hold on. I need to pull this one up. This will, if this doesn't, is this it? Hold on. Stand by. There is this video. And oh my God. Is this video gone now? Okay, here it is. Here it is, guys. Hold on.
These words the fast way. Get ready.
Play.
Yes, playing. Get ready.
Because
Yes, must.
okay.
Let's read.
Okay. So this is the shit that I want you guys to understand, right? When I am talking about like these things that you like are conspiratorial, this is what I mean. Like if you want to talk about things that are conspiratorial, this book was
Get
being
ready.
read
Yes,
to George
must.
Bush. And listen to what they were telling him. This was September 11th, right? This is a book that kids were reading to him the morning of 9/11.
Yes, kid. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready.
Seal.
What word?
Seal.
Yes, steal. Read these words the fast way. Get ready.
Play.
Yes, playing. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get ready.
Kick.
Yes, kiss. And 60 on page 153.
Sir, the second tower's been hit. The second tower's been hit. Oh, man. Now watch me
Count
drop
three.
this
Let's
ball.
try it again. Get ready from the beginning of that
Yo.
sentence. Get ready.
She played with her goat in her house.
Go on.
She played
Okay.
with her.
So for those of you, let's just go back. Let's go back to those first few words.
Yes, kid. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready.
Seal.
What
Steal.
word?
Seal.
Yes, steal.
Steal.
Read these words the fast way. Get ready.
Play.
Yes,
Plain.
play. Get ready.
Must.
Yes,
Must.
must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get
Steal, plain, must. What? Bro, you're going to tell me that Homeboy is just getting the whole narration of what's happening at the World Trade Center is just read to him randomly by a bunch of kids? Yeah, look into that one, guys. And then tell me how realistic a false flag attack is. Very realistic. I just think that this whole thing is absolutely bananas. If you ask me, I think it's all bananas. Absolutely insane. I think that there is going to be more attacks. I think that it's going to be more, there's going to be a lot more anti-Islamic rhetoric getting pushed, a lot more hatred being spread. I think that this false flag attack is going to happen. What I think is going to happen, though, is that if we have drone strikes that are hit in California, it's not going to be from, it's going to be staged to look like Mexican cartel. It's going to be staged to look like the Iranians. Now, I just want everyone to also know that we have the exact same drones that we develop. Spectre works in Phoenix, Arizona. The Lucas FLM 136. Look it up, guys. So again, to it too, that's just my brain, what it's processing. But I think I'm going to be done for this stream. And yeah, we will talk about stuff like this another day, I guess. But yeah, keep it real, guys. Keep it fresh. Stay woke. Stay based. Go Aura Farm. Try to look smacks. Bone crush a little bit. Do like what are the kids do these days? I'm old. I'm 31. I don't know what these kids are doing, but it's probably freaking cool, dude. Anyways, yeah, that's my rant. I'm gonna be done for the night. Anyone that's watched,